Welcome back. Today we are talking with Jason Haas about soft skills and resilience. Jason, great first segment. We talked about there with what soft skills are and help define what some of the characteristics are. Now, my question for you is, how do we go about developing our soft skills?
Well, the great thing is soft skills can be taught and we can learn them. It's not something that we're naturally gifted with. Um, for me personally, I was an introvert. I'm a recovering introvert, and I still find myself very much an introvert in like large groups where I don't know a bunch of people. I'll be that wallflower. And I struggle with that. And that's something I'm still working on. But for me to develop soft skills, one, practice active listening. This time I started with listening. Make that comfort or conscious effort to carefully listen to others. Are you giving yourself the opportunity to hear them? And, in the end, a lot of us just want to be heard. So practicing that active listening, seek feedback. That's one thing I do very active in a lot of my meetings and my one-to-ones is I want to know the good, bad, and ugly. Because if you're not helping me, how am I ever going to know? I'm too close to it to realize where I may need some development or some feedback. Did I do good? And just telling somebody, you're doing a great job, that's not feedback. That doesn't help anyone. But you could say, in this time when you wrote this email, I felt the tone was so-and-so, and maybe that wasn't what you were aiming for. Okay, you take that back. Use your active listening. You heard that feedback. Now what are you going to do with it? Also, sometimes in those large groups of being observant, looking at people, see how they interact, how they conduct themselves with other. Look at the body language. Do you have those arms crossed, or are people out talking with their hands, being really animated? You can learn a lot just by looking, by observing, and seeing how others interact with each other. Also, another way is to join team projects. We're better together. So many times, again, in resilience, we're a team of one and we feel alone in the ocean of resilience. And it's like, okay, I need a paddle. I need help. I need to interact with others, because again, if we're just by ourselves, all we have is our own thoughts and our own perceptions of what we're doing. So joining projects or, teaming, partnering with people really helps bring, broad perspective to what we're trying to accomplish. And you can, again, use active listening to hear those dissenting facts so you can take a course correction if needed.
Would that be networking?
Yeah, I
Even
would
if
say
you're a
that
team
would
of
very much.
one, you can create a team if you're networking.
Right. And also just like on LinkedIn, building your personal brand, that's another way of kind of joining a team. You're trying to gain followers so you can talk about things that are important to you and engage your followers around that, and you create value with that. That'd be another way of networking and partnering and team projects. Also, taking on leadership opportunities. Now, we can call that other duties as assigned or defined and things like that, but leading when there is absence of leadership. Sometimes, if you're in an incident and you're looking around the room and nobody's, jumping up saying, ooh, I want to be the point person. Well, then that should be you, that you sometimes need to be bold and put yourself out of your comfort zone and take those opportunities to lead. You never know what that'll potentially uncover. Somebody's going to notice it. Somebody's going to practice that active listening and hear what you're saying as you try to guide the group. They're going to, be observant. How are you acting? How are you interacting with people, especially under, adversity and different stressors? So take on those opportunities to lead, because you never know what will come out of it, and you'll have personal growth as well. Develop cultural awareness, educate yourself, read those books and articles about different cultures. If you have different cultures within your organization or in your personal life, get to know them, get to understand them. They're all unique and wonderful in their own way. And if you just take that time, again, active listening, seek that feedback, ask questions, be a little bit more bold and kind and empathetical about it, you can really learn a lot and get a deeper appreciation for the cultural awareness.
I'm going to ask a question
Yeah.
that I'm sure some listeners are probably thinking. So how long does this take?
Great question. I feel I'm on year 47, year 48 of trying to figure this out. And I figure I've got another 48 to go. It's like painting a bridge. You're never done. We're always learning, we're always listening, and we're always improving ourselves. I'm a huge fan of the idea of continuous improvement. We're never done improving, whatever it may be. And I look at myself, I'm never done improving. Being on this podcast is allowing me to grow personally. And it's like, okay, I get to talk about something I'm passionate with, or and somebody who has similar passion for the industry and what we do. It's like, okay, we try to figure it out. We learn as we go, we learn as we grow, and it's never done, ever, in
Yeah,
my humble opinion.
it's true. We can't just read a book and then all of a sudden we are compassionate,
Right,
towards other people. We have to practice it and know
right.
what that really means, how to
And
identify it and how to show it.
right. And I hate to say it, we also need to make mistakes too. We're
Mm.
far from perfect. And my career is built on missteps and mistakes. And that's okay. I celebrate those like they're wins because each one are a win. They allowed me to identify I wasn't active listening. I didn't want to hear the other party. I already had made up my mind. I'm going to wall myself off from others because I'm going to let that internal introvert really thrive. Or maybe I'm insensitive to other cultures because maybe I made a bad joke in the workplace trying to form a relationship and just break down some barriers. In the end, we're always learning. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things that maybe not paint us in the best of light, but we need to own them. We need to celebrate them to a point. I mean, if you're being like just really unkind, unprofessional, things like that, well, those aren't times to celebrate. Those are times for reflection and personal growth, where you need to understand, why did you do that? Why did you think that's appropriate? But yeah, it's all about that feedback cycle. And obviously we take on leaderships, we have cultural awareness, we also need to play through scenarios. I do a lot of introspection. It's one of my favorite things of walking my dog. When I walk my dog, is I get a chance to reflect. I don't bring any music or any distractions. It's me, the dog, and the noises around me. And it gives me a time to reflect on the good, bad, and ugly of things that I've done. So I play myself through scenarios, the what ifs. What if I would have said this or made this decision? And I went down that rabbit hole now. Well, you work through those scenarios to develop yourself. Also, again, we expand our network. Again, that goes in with networking, where we can expand our professional and personal network to enrich ourselves. Also, I'm part of enriching ourselves. Professional development is absolutely massive. If we're not growing, we're dying. So what type of skill set are we looking for? What is going to make us whole? For me, it was that MIT crisis management business resilience course. That was a bucket list item for me for professional development, because it gave me a totally different perspective with industry leaders from around the world. And I got to meet some great people in that journey, and I'm so thankful for it. And that enriched myself, professional development, and I can bring that back to my organization and apply that skill set. I'm also a huge fan of a mentor. I think we all need one, both in personal and professional. We need that sounding board. It's a safe place where we can talk about those challenging topics, and it's going, oh, this person really frustrated me, and this is how I responded. How could have I done better? Because it's hard to break that down with the person that you're having that adversity or that struggle with, because you're both kind of most likely dug in. You both have really strong feelings about why you're right and they're wrong. And that mentor's that safe place where you can break it down, and then you can call you out when you need to be. I've been called a knucklehead many a times, and I'm thankful for each one of those, because I heard that and I didn't necessarily like it. So that caused me to have that introspection, to make me look at, what did I do wrong? How can I be a better human? How could I have, maybe positioned myself differently to invoke a different response? Did I come in just, like a bull in a china shop thinking I know everything? I know nothing. I need to make sure I'm actively listening to that person. And that mentor really helps guide me in all of those things, to develop those skill sets, to call me out when I need to be called out, and just to be that safe place to talk about challenging things.
So that's an interesting point, and I just want to add to what you were saying. When I started doing these podcasts 6 years ago, it was people were telling me, at least when I got started, oh, you were the subject matter expert, and you'll get guests. And I realized very quickly, it's like, no, 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 I am not the subject matter expert. I'm not the star of this show. The guest is. They're the subject matter expert, and that's when I started to say less and let other people talk more. It really made a big difference, and it still does.
Right. And that's where that active listening comes in, where when things get maybe hitting those guide rails or off the rails, where you can kind of nudge it back, but allowing people to talk, it's amazing what you can learn when you listen.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I love it.
And, sometimes people show a different side of themselves that maybe not so great because you've allowed them the opportunity to talk and, get lost in their own thoughts and go down rabbit holes. And it's very interesting when you just sit back and observe and engage when necessary. You learn a lot about a person or a company or a product or whatever it might be really, really quick.
Sometimes that can be fun going down rabbit holes. So,
Yeah.
so these soft skills that we've talked about now, how does that contribute to an organization's resilience, and in the workplace? How does soft skills really contribute there? The benefits.
Well, it can help build, influence, enhance culture. And culture really matters to me from a resilience. I love organizational resilience. I get operational resilience. That's just as crucial to, but organizational resilience is, really an application of those soft skills. How can we use those soft skills to enhance the culture, to make sure when that adversity strikes that we can get them to show up? If you have an organization that is overburdened, underpaid, and just not happy, well, when adversity strikes, who's going to pick up that phone when you call? And when they do pick up that phone, how are they going to respond to you? It'd probably be a deep sigh and going, "What do you want? It's Saturday morning."
Or ignore
Yeah,
you.
right, right, exactly. That's what caller ID is for. Um, so it's using those soft skills to help influence culture, to know that people aren't alone, that they have been heard. And, it can be hard from a resilience perspective because we're not necessarily part of the C-suite. And culture starts at the C-suite and is influenced and enhanced by the C-suite. Because if you have your team members influencing and enhancing culture, I look at that more of a mutiny when it comes from the bottom up instead of the top down. But we can use those soft skills to make sure people are heard, to make sure that we show our appreciation for efforts and that, for each person and respect them for who they are. We also need those soft skills in learning how to communicate. Communication is another massive pillar of any organization. Organizations that struggle with communication struggle to be successful. They'll struggle with team member retention. They'll struggle with hitting their financial objectives. They'll just simply struggle. And when adversity strikes, they very well could fail because if they can't communicate in the best of times, how are they going to do it in the worst of times? Because it's only exacerbated by crisis and adversity. So, we use those soft skills to try to let people know, one, it's okay to not be okay, that it's okay to communicate, it's okay to speak your truth, it's okay to take time for yourself, it's okay to say that you need help. And we want to communicate through these things because all crises start with a communication, usually in a communications bridge. We can't start solutioning if we don't understand what we're experiencing. So we need to bake that into the culture of the organization, to know that we should be, have that radical candor, to call things out, to be transparent in our communication, to own our failures, and to be okay to fail, as hard as it may be, and as maybe the outcomes aren't so great. Could be a resume generating event for you, depending on what that failure looks like. But in the end, it's going to be okay.
I think people forget that. Two points. One, that what you just said. I think people are afraid to fail because others see failure as something negative rather than an opportunity to learn.
Right. And, if you're in the IT space and you test in production, well, that's not an okay failure. We don't test in production per se, but we have our different environments that we can test different concepts are that where it's safer to fail. Well, sometimes we do have to test in production because there is no resilience to a system and things like that. And, that's guided sometimes by hopes and prayers, which isn't the best path to resilience. But, in the end, we have to be okay with some level of failure, because out of that, you'll get a lot of growth. And if you support your team through failure, they're going to remember that you weren't that harsh punitive leader or that harsh punitive team member, adding insult to injury in the worst of times, going, oh, you could have done better, or why'd you do this, that's not so smart. Give them space. They know that they misstepped. Allow them growth. Give them honest constructive feedback. Lift them up. Nobody likes to fail, but it's all part of it. Like I said, my career is built with failures. I could, my resume could have a list of them. I got to where I am by different types of failures. And again, we have to be okay with that. If we don't allow ourselves to fail, we'll never allow ourselves to succeed.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing too, and understanding when someone does fail, that it's, like I said, it's an opportunity. It's not the end of the world. It's like, oh, okay, you tripped, pick yourself up and keep going.
Right.
Go ahead.
And in resilience and DR, this is why we run hot washes, postmortems, after action reviews, call it whatever you will. It's to review those, failures and to find a way, could have we done better? Probably, but also maybe not. And that's okay. But we're taking the chance to talk about the successes and the failures of an event. And, that can very well apply to personal as well. There's certain things that I say that, I'll have that after reflection, or when I'm taking my dog for a walk going, that's not such a great thing that I said. You know what? I should reach out to that person and, own it. And that's okay. Whether they think it's okay, that's different, but you have to also be okay with it on your side, saying, hey, I screwed up. I'm, misspoke, or maybe I said something that I shouldn't have. Own it, apologize, find a way to work through it. That person will most likely appreciate you a lot more for being honest.
And that comes back to the soft skills of being, being self-aware, to be able to do that and recognize that, taking that time, like you said, like you do, walking the dog, to recognize, oh, there was a mistake there. I made the mistake. It wasn't, Betty who did that data analysis report. I didn't give her the right requirements.
Right.
It could be that, and it's understanding, instead of turning around and blasting Betty, you did a terrible job or whatever. It's, no, it's me. I didn't communicate correctly.
Right. Or I came in with preconceived notions. I had my mind made up before I ever listened to the person, because I've seen this a million times. No, you haven't. You haven't seen it that time. You haven't seen it with that person. Again, go in with an open mind and practice those wonderful soft skills, active listening, be the leader when a leader's not present, find a way to always prevail. In the end, we're all people. We all want to, be heard. Most of us want to be loved. And, if we can bring some of that to people and be compassionate and use those soft skills to know that, it's going to be okay. We can achieve amazing things. Just like in my elevator pitch, when people ask, what is resilience? I'm like, well, if you have ever been in an adverse event, let's say a house fire, and you're outside, and it's cold out, chances are you're going to have emergency services bring that blanket to wrap around you. That blanket is resilience. It's not necessarily going to fix your problem or solve it, but it allows you comfort and time to reflect and work through those challenges. You come outside of a house fire, you lost all of your possessions. That's a traumatic event. But that moment of where that emergency service or service personnel puts that blanket around you, well, that's a tide change right there. Now you're safe. Things are going to be okay. You'll figure this out. You're not going to figure it out right now. Right now, it's all about healing. And that, again, is okay. Take comfort in that warm blanket and then allow yourself time to reflect and figure it out. And that, to me, that's resilience. It buys organizations time to work through adversity, whatever that adversity might be.
That's a good example. We have 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left, sorry. Final thoughts or comments that you'd like to convey regarding soft skills and resilience?
Yeah, my final thoughts on this is, in the end, we're all people trying to achieve some sort of objective. If we listen to each other, communicate clearly and effectively, be empathetical with each other, it's amazing what we can do as a society as a whole. We can start solving real challenges, not just in our organization. We might be able to solve things like, well, I don't know if we'll ever solve global warming, but we might be able to make an impact or a difference, or try different things through that, or work through political type challenges and things like that. In the US, we're extremely polarized in our political, but if you just listen, you might be able to have some great takeaways from it. So for me, that's the biggest thing with soft skills. Listen first before you make up your mind. And then, from there, take action as you see fit.
And I think this was one of the other points I was going to make earlier. You touched on it, that soft skills, these aren't just for us in the resilience industry. They're for everybody. Like, regardless of your title, where you are in the organization or what you do, everybody should be able to develop their soft skills and use them accordingly.
Right. I use it with my parents, my children. I use soft skills with my dog. When she's barking at me, I'm trying to figure out, what are you trying to tell me so I can help you, and just using those soft skills to achieve a common goal. It's like, I want my dog to go outside to use the bathroom, preferably not inside. So I need to make sure I'm actively listening, because that bark is different when she really has to go outside compared to when she just wants to play or wants attention. And it's a horrible parallel, but it's the same with people. In the end, we all want to be heard. We all want to do the best that we can, and we need to enable each other instead of pushing each other down. And that's using soft skills.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end today's episode. Jason, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and expertise on soft skills and resilience. I really appreciate it. A great chat, great ideas, and I hope people were, as you say, listening.
And if not, I would love to hear the good, bad, and ugly about all of this. And you can find me, of course, on LinkedIn is the best place to let me know what you think about this. And again, radical candor. Let me hear it. Am I speaking fluff here? Do you not believe in this? Do you agree with it? Why do you agree with it? I would love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Especially when we talked about it, it's for everybody, and it helps everybody in the end. So it'd be interesting to hear what others say if they don't believe in it. Why?
Right. That could be another topic of a podcast here.
It could be. Why are you experiencing some of these things that you say?
Right.
So, Jason, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you to all of your subscribers. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. Thank you so much for all that you do to support us in the industry and to showcase thought leaders as well. I've learned so much from listening to all of your podcasts. I'm better for it.
Well, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And everybody watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.